Hey everybody, hi, very good morning for our 10th day of reading challenge, which is for 91 days, and it's 10th day. So, very welcome to my live streaming where we read for 2 hours, and we are going to read this for 91 days. So that is the thing. So as you can see here, if I scroll, drag it down like these, this is my tracker where I usually read and track. So here, as you can see, if I show here, if you are able to see 32-day streak, so that I have been reading for 32 days. It's 33rd day of reading challenge, but I was doing it earlier, but I started doing live streaming like before 10 days, not 10 days, 9 days, because when I was giving 3 hours to reading, at the time I realized that if I'm reading, so let's read these with you guys, so that like I'll also be improved. Your, if you want to listen it, like if you like to listen audiobooks, or if you like to read, you can also read, you can also like have some thinkings and all those things. So I just decided that let's take this on YouTube, and now it's 10th day. So it's all about starting. If you are going to start, then yeah, definitely that starting will go somewhere where you wanted to take it. So that is how it works. In the morning, I was thinking why I wouldn't have started it earlier, because I see some of the changes in me. I see like the way of communication and all those things. It is getting better. You might not be seeing it much major differences, but I can personally feel it that yes, if I'm going to do live streaming, then definitely my way of speaking, my hesitation, and my way of developing the things, like let's say yesterday I was trying to edit, and as I have already taken 91 days challenge of editing skill as well, for that I was working on that skill as well as challenge. So I realized editing is not all about just sitting and finding out cut and like related to editing only. It's all about how you manage the things, how you record yourself, what is your thoughts behind that particular video, how you search music. There are lots of things that goes behind the scene. It's not only about editing. So it was really interesting. My experience of second day is was literally like awesome, because when I started learning editing skill, at the time I was literally thinking, "Okay, what should I do? What should I do in the sense, like I was not known about from where I start. Should I directly take a clip? Because editing in the sense, I don't have to edit anything else. I have to edit myself, my videos. And I found myself that those videos, like literally you have to have your camera set up somewhere else so that you can take a proper clips and all those. It's all about like that. So overall, editing in the sense, you are making yourself better every day, because you just don't have to sit and edit. You have to figure out what you can offer people, not offer, actually give people what value you are going to give with this video. That's all about. So it's very interesting. Today I'm having uh, less in the sense cold and cough. Yesterday or day before yesterday, it was like much, because I bath with cold water just because of that. Thank you very much, whoever has joined. So first of all, let me see if my screen is visible. Yeah, it's visible. So thank you very much, whoever is joined. Very welcome to live stream where we read every day. If you are new, so just to let you know that where we read every day for 2 hours, and it's a challenge of 90 day that I'm completing. So now let's begin that what we were reading. So we were reading Mindsight, and I'm going to open that book, Mindsight, and we are going to start reading from starting. Like this, the page 297, we are going to start reading from here itself. So one more thing, I started my live streaming late today because today not today is Saturday. I just wanted to sleep for a while because sleep also is good for health. If you are not going to get good sleep, then you won't be able to focus. So I thought, let's sleep for a while because today I don't have much work. I'll be having only YouTube related, like my challenges, reading challenges that I'm going to complete for now. After that, there is one another challenge, editing, which I don't think that take will much time, but it's just I have to like find myself something that I can show, that I can like learn. That is how, like, there are things that I'm going to like how. Besides that, yeah, let's read now. So thank you very much if you're watching it again. Let me start. When we see the mind of another person, we bring the qualities of being present, curiosity, openness, and acceptance into our relationships. These qualities seem to me to be the essence of what overused, often misunderstood word love. I propose that this stance of curiosity, openness, acceptance, and love is at the heart of secure attachments. And this stance is the felt sense you pick up from a coherent narrator's relationship with himself. Self-compassion and self-acceptance emerge quite seamlessly from the secure attachments. Now, what are the results? The result of consistent, continuous, and caring connections with our caregivers in early life, but they can also emerge from an earned secure attachment. As with my friend Rebecca, who had such a difficult childhood. When, as Rebecca says, we feel that we are inside the heart of another. The candlelight of love glows within and illuminates our lives. So what I'm going to do here, one thing is that I'm going to read it quite slow in the sense, so that I can also understand, and we should feel the sentence, we should feel the each and everything. And one more thing that I notice here, whenever I speak to you at the time, sometimes I don't see directly in your eyes or towards you. I see on my window, sometimes I see here and there that I have to like correct here. Why I'm saying this? Because as I always says, our brain listens and it acts on it. So tell your brain to do that you wanted to achieve. And so I'm telling my brain say that I don't have to look here and there. I have to look in towards you, not a camera. I can't say camera because literally I feel the audience, and when I feel the audience in the sense you guys, not audience actually. So when I feel that you are watching me, then yeah, definitely I should watch towards you only. I shouldn't watch here and there because it's not good. It don't give good impression. Again, I saw here, like here, it was my like kind of, I was used to it, seeing here and there, but eventually I told my brain that you don't have to look here and there. It will make it correct. It don't have to like do this and that. He just have to do this, and it's very effective. If you are telling your brain that you have to do this and that, then your brain is not gonna do that seriously. Because might be if you open my first video, there you'll find I'm making lots of filler words, but now personally right now I feel that I'm not making any filler words because I'm speaking very seamlessly in the sense I'm not getting something in between. Like there is one word that I used to speak very loud, like. It was just because my brain was trying to find or trying to fill the gap that I was going to have. Let's say if I'm speaking something right now, I'm speaking something, let's say of rocket science. What is the rocket science? I don't know about rocket science. Then to feel its gap after saying what is the rocket science, because my brain don't know, or I don't know what does it mean by rocket science. Actually I do like rocket science, I do know about rocket science, but exact I don't know. So what it will do, like it will try to find something so that my brain can fill that next gap. So it is just there is one word that we have, flight, and something like it's related to our not existence, survival of fittest, something like that. I don't remember the concept, but it was like that. So our brain try to figure out the things its own. If we are not giving it consciously thoughts, or consciously not providing information that what he has to do, then it try to find its own and resolve the problem. So let's say if I'm speaking about what does it mean by rocket science, and if I don't get what is the next, then my brain will try to figure out the things, and it will automatically say oh, something like that, so that the brain shouldn't feel that you are pausing, and you are feeling like it's kind of social anxiety, not anxiety, like you don't have to show yourself you're weak in front of people, that your brain is trying to do. So instead of letting your subconscious mind do random things, just give it information so that it should work on, it should act on that. So that's the thing what I'm doing right now. What I'm doing in the sense, I'm giving instructions to my brain that what he has to do and what he hasn't. Mostly I don't say what he hasn't, but you just have to say, if you are saying your brain that to do something, then do something. You don't have to say not to do anything, or not a negative in the sense positive negative, like not ha as no, as no. I take negative as no. So no, you don't have to say no or not to your brain. That is the thing. Hey, hi, concurrent viewers. Self-compassion and self-acceptance emerge quite seamlessly from the secure attachment that are the result of consistent, continuous and caring connections with our caregivers in early life, but they can also emerge from an unsecure attachment, as with my friend Rebecca, who had such a difficult childhood, when, as Rebecca says, we feel that we are inside the heart of another, the candlelight of love. There is one more thing that I noticed. I don't have to rush myself. My brain was thinking that if I'm going to say fast, then people will think that, oh, I'm really like a good person. See, like they are gonna think that I'm a good. I do know about most of the things that is I'm speaking so fast, but it's not like that. You can take pauses, lots of pauses. You can pauses has so much impression. If you are saying something important, take a pause before that. It will make it more good, more good in the sense it will impact person. Let me read. For most of us, it is our parents who light that candle. For Rebecca, it was her aunt. Feeling felt by her aunt gave her a sense of herself as real and vulnerable, even in the face of the chaotic parental environment at home, and ultimately allowed her to arrive at a coherent narrative of her life story. If we have a positive relationship with a relative, teacher, counselor, or a friend, the path is set for us to create a positive relationship with ourselves. We can then light our own interior world with mindsight and see our lives as stories that hang together and have meaning. This is one reason I always try to encourage teachers and therapists to offer a solid, attuned connection to their students and patients. Wonderful things happen when people feel felt, when they sense that their minds are held within another's minds. My friend Rebecca now has children of her own, children who have the gift of a mother with whom they can have an open, loving relationship. If you saw Rebecca with them, you would never you are never guess what a painful childhood she had. Early experience is not fate. If you saw Rebecca with them, you would never guess now what a painful childhood she had. Early experience is not fate. If we can make sense of our past, if we integrate our narratives, we can free ourselves from what might otherwise be a cross-generational legacy of pain and insecure attachment. Rebecca has always served as an inspiration for me for taking responsibility for one's own mind can lead to liberation of the self and to the ability to offer nurturance and love to the next generation. Our multiple selves getting in touch with core. Matthew knew he was in trouble when, without warning, this fourth girlfriend in 5 years slammed the door of his house behind her, thus slamming it on their relationship as well. At least this was the way that he initially told his story. I would soon discover that within Matthew's mind there had been many warning signs that something was awry. A feeling that he was watching the reenactment of a pattern of behavior that was out of his control. Matthew was a 40-year-old investment banker, renowned, renowned in his field for his affable nature and for his shrewd, profitable business decisions. His public persona was that of confident, easy to get along with guy. Yet in his private life, he didn't seem to be able to maintain the intimacy that he said he wanted. Something would take him over, and he would create his own worst nightmare, lose his partner, and be alone yet again. At work, Matthew made decisions concerning large sums of money without hesitation or second guessing. He was sure of himself and clear in his mind thinking. But when he first came to see me, this financial success was like a surface film over a deeper pool of pain, of which no one, not even Matthew himself, seemed to be fully aware. He certainly had no idea why there was such a split in his experience, solid as a rock at work, a broken branch at home. Matthew had made many people wealthy. His reputation was founded on result, which led to still investment opportunities. It was a lucrative upward spiral that yielded both financial reward and the social benefits that made Matthew what he termed a hot commodity in the city's single scene. The financial markets were flying high during those years, and Matthew's women were like the high profile, expensive properties he traded at work, glamorous, highly desirable, and accessible only to a few. But this business strategy yielded strangely barren results outside the office. Matthew's large number of debts, like the abundance of his clients and dollars at work, had in fact done little to make him feel that he was worth all the attention. After a month of their therapy, he acknowledged to me that despite his professional success, inside he felt like an impostor just waiting for them to find me out. When Matthew was younger, he had longed for the chase, seeking out women, having sex, and then never seeing them again. He was the ultimate one night stand kind of guy. He told me after his late 20s, he said this routine bored him and he came to realize how empty these sexual encounters were. I had conquered, but I had nothing. It was terribly painful. At 30, Matthew decided to make a change, but things weren't working out as he had hoped. In the years following his 30th birthday, Matthew's revolving door of girlfriends added up to a dizzying list of failed attempts to achieve something he said he wanted but could not really define. Matthew sought this woman with tremendous energy, and he was glad to have gotten past the one night encounters of his younger days. But after he would own them over and then came to know and accept him, something changed inside him. Instead of the deepening attraction he had hoped he would feel for a woman, after the first month of dating, he would feel more and more repelled by her caring. During the initial period with Newman, Matthew would find himself electrified in her presence. He would send flowers and small notes, make surprise visits to her workplace or home. His infatuation had an exhilarating drive that he found addictive. Matthew loved a challenge and was drawn to mastering the near impossible. This was his passion at work, and this is how he carried out his romantic life. He would pick a woman whose public profile and good looks were something that, even given his own status, would seem to make her out of reach. Now, this disparity of worth in his own mind, of course, galvanized his resolve to make her interested in him. Occasionally, he sensed that he was becoming lost in some familiar chase, less interested in the person than in the pursuit, but he was driven by some potent elixir that had little to do with intimacy and everything to do with the challenge. One of my first hypotheses was that Matthew was primarily, as he said, addicted to the thrill of the chase. In brain terms, this would involve surges in the release of the chemical messenger dopamine, which plays a central role in drive and reward. All addictive behavior, from gambling to the use of drugs such as cocaine and alcohol, involves the activation of the dopamine system. Rats will consume cocaine in a lieu of food or water. Dopamine activation is so rapid and intense with cocaine that no other activities or substance can compete with it. The neural areas initiated reward seem to overwhelm the prefrontal areas that regulate our more complex behaviors, so that instead of our being able to choose our actions, the drug chooses them for us. The reward circuits take over and our conscious cortical mind becomes a slave to the addictive drive. But I soon realized that Matthew's surge addiction was only one element of his relationship history. While a simple drive for dopamine might have led to the kind of impulsive and promise promiscuous sexual encounters without regard to safety or selectivity that were typical of Matthew's behavior in his 20s. His pattern had changed since then. Now he was strategizing and carrying out long-term plans for conquest. He could wait, plan, and pursue his romantic interest with great patience, not a dopamine surge-driven kind of behavior pattern. As he and I explored his more recent romantic history further, Matthew himself stated that he felt that proving his ability to win over high profile women would somehow establish his worth. Perhaps this goal of using the people he associated with in order to convince himself and others of his value is not so uncommon, but the specific source of pain for Matthew was that none of these relationships ever lasted. Matthew could not seem to get what he wanted, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't even get what he needed. In Matthew's life, so far, the Rolling Stones were wrong. Now, often, the woman Matthew chose would initially be cool and indifferent, but soon some would become more affectionate and begin to care about him deeply. Then, rather than seeing this as a sign of a successful relationship or even a sign of his worth, Matthew would lose his drive to be with the woman and suddenly begin to act in a ways that would cause her to leave him. Once Once a new girlfriend showed sign of liking him, Matthew's sexual attraction to her started to wane. Even more, if she showed affection for him outside the bedroom, he began to feel repulsed, even nauseated by her caring behavior. If he tried to go through the emotion in bed, his lack of sexual arousal became all too evident. He became self-conscious, and intercourse was sometimes not possible at all. Then Matthew would find himself doing things to pull away or to alienate her. He would let loose with irritation and frustration. If she responded with concern, he would up the amplitude of his disgust. He would find himself not returning her phone calls or ignoring when they were together. Usually at that point things just fell apart. A theme began to emerge. Matthew was stuck in a maddening cycle of contradiction, repeatedly sabotaging the very thing he believed he was trying to achieve. My clinical impressions had come together as well. Matthew seemed to be trying to undo some profound sense of inadequacy. When you do not value yourself, the positive appraisal of others can, ironically, become a painful source of discomfort. As Groucho Marx famously said, I don't care to. I don't care to belong to a club that accepts people like me as a member. Woody Allen, who quotes Groucho in his classic film Annie Hall, might have put his arm around Matthew and told him to lighten up. But the pain of rejection was no laughing matter for Matthew. He frequently found himself alone, rejected by the very people he had expended huge amounts of effort, time, and money to pursue. Now, once they had invited him in, he would make his exit. An unsolved conflict. Matthew's answer to the adult attachment interview opened the door to his inner world. His father had chronic lung problems, emphysema, and asthma. Today or yesterday, I'm not able to like see its pronunciation just because I forgot to make the gestures. I would make the some around workaround for this, and like when I click these and see translate and see run it or play it, then it don't show anything. It don't speak anything. And was bedridden for most of Matthew's childhood. Matthew could recall being brushed aside, told by his mother that he shouldn't bother his father, that if he did anything to upset his father, it would kill him. His two elder sisters were busy with school and babysitting jobs. His mother, a talented pianist, before she married, had taken a job as middle school music teacher when his father could no longer work. She made no secret of her frustration and anger at her situation. And as Matthew came to see in retrospect, she was also profoundly frightened and alone. Early in our discussions, Matthew described mainly a feeling of distance from his mother. But one day we entered deeper waters. We were trying to explore why he so often felt anxious and irritable when he was out to dinner with the current woman in his life. His eyes filled with tears and he began to sob. At some point, he told me his mother had become convinced that his father's illness was caused by poor nutrition. To help keep us all healthy, he said she would prepare mounds of food for the family. Food his father didn't have the energy to eat. When Matthew couldn't finish what she had piled on his plate, she would banish him to his room. Later, when his sister left for their babysitting jobs and his father was asleep, she would come to his room and berate him for his failings, and sometimes she would use a belt on him to let me know how much she cared for me. During these early sessions, when we explored his past, Matthew would at times enter a shutdown mode, a form of collapse, as he later called it, in which he felt stuck and unable to move. He would stop speaking and just stare out into the room, seemingly lost in thought. When he came out of it and tried to tell me about that internal paralyzed state, what he described sounded like the freeze arm of the fight flight freeze response. Yeah, fight flight freeze response, that when I was speaking with you or when I was trying to convey you that our brain tried to solve its own problem. So I was just finding this word fight flight freeze response. It was as if his brain had assessed life-threatening danger where collapse and helplessness were the only possible response. But easy to get along with Matthew was also starting to show me the fight in his response system. He would tumble down the low road in response to some minor irritation. Once I forgot to put my cell phone on vibrate before our session and the ringtone angered him. I'm paying for this time and I want to know that you respect it. He snapped. His reaction to being interrupted was understandable, but his hostility was as he later admitted through the roof. Matthew's mother had created the biological paradox of disorganized attachment in her son. He was scared of her and he was driven to escape the source of fear. At the same time, the attachment circuits in his brain were driving him toward his attachment figure for soothing. As I discussed in chapter 9, the problem is that those two states embedded two opposite drives aimed at the same person at the same moment. Such a conflict is not resolvable. It is the fear without solution that Yuli faced with her alcoholic father, the fear that is at the heart of a disorganized mind. These repeated episodes with his mother during his pre-adolescent years not only were terrifying at the time, but they also seared yet another state into Matthew's brain, the state of shame. Imagine a car with the accelerator smoothly functioning. When we need to be seen and understood by others, our attachment circuits are revved up. We are in a state of seeking connections. And when our need is met, we move forward happily through our lives. But if we are not seen, if our caregiver do not attune to us, and we are met with the experience of feeling invisible or misunderstood, our nervous system responds with a sudden activation of the brake portion of its regulatory circuit. Slamming on the brakes creates a distinctive physiological response. Heaviness in the chest, nausea in the belly, and downcast or turned away eyes. We literally shrink into ourselves from a pain that is often beneath our awareness. This nauseating and jolting shift occurs whenever we are ignored or are given confusing signals by others, and it is experienced as a state of shame. Shame states are common in children whose parents are repeatedly unavailable or who habitually fail to attune to them. When shame from a non-attuned communication is combined with parental hostility, toxic humiliation ensue. These isolated states of being, shame intensified by humiliation, burn themselves into our synaptic connections. Now the slammed on brakes of the freeze response are painfully combined with the floored accelerator of rage. In the future, we will be vulnerable to reactivating the state of shame or humiliation in contexts that resemble the original situation as happened when Matthew. Oh, where I was reading. Has happened when Matthew needed to be seen and cared for by a female, for by a female, whether it was his mother when he was a child or his girlfriends as an adult. As the child grows older and the cortex develops more fully, the state of shame becomes associated with a cortical constructed belief that that the self is defective. From the point of view of survival, I am bad is a safer perspective than my parents are unreliable and may abandon me at any time. It's better for the child to feel defective than to realize that his attachment figures are dangerous, undependable, or untrustworthy. The mental mechanism of shame at least preserves for him the illusion of safety and security that is at the core of his sanity. It is here that we can begin to see the developmental and neural origin of many of Matthew's underlying issues and of his states of humiliation and rage, fear and anxiety. shame and frozen terror, fight, flight, and freeze. Now, because he hadn't integrated these reactive states into his own narrative, he was an helpless in dealing with them as he had been when he was a little boy and his mother entered his room with a grim face and a belt. In life, we do the best we can, but the same best conviction that we are defective, which often goes underground beneath our cortical consciousness, can sabotage us if it remains unconscious. Although such subterranean shame can compel us to succeed, to prove we are good and worthy of others' respect and admiration. Our developmentally accident feelings of being damaged goods are likely to surface at any hint of stress or failure, and we may become highly reactive in order to keep others at a distance. We need to prevent them and ourselves now from becoming aware of our shadowy past, the hidden truth of our rotten self. In our personal lives, intimacy is compromised because the closer others come to the real self beneath our public persona, the more vulnerable we feel and the more alarmed we are that this secret truth about our defective nature may be revealed. Such a profile can help explain why Matthew worked so hard to win over women who initially found him uninteresting, the impossible ones, who exercised such a powerful draw on his attention because they reminded him implicitly of his mother. Matthew engaged in this conquest, acceptance, repulsion cycle as if his life depended on it. In some ways, his life as a child did depend on finding a way to convince his mother and his father that he was worthy of their love and attention. This drive to prove, to convince the nearly convincible had remained his familiar place even in adulthood. He would find the challenging symbol of his mother. It is difficult to get girlfriends and woo them to prove his worth, striving to assuage a feeling of shame of which he was not even aware. But as soon as a woman became affectionate, the game to prove was on and the real danger began. There was nowhere to hide, nothing to do but run or get the woman to leave. Painfully, the isolation he felt as a child was being disastrously recreated as an adult. This is how shame repeatedly led to Matthews becoming lost in those familiar places. He was caught up in the cycle of isolation, and his alternating states of attraction and repulsion had driven him to a dead end. In earlier chapters, we have seen that dissociation has a broad spectrum, ranging from everyday absorption in a daydream to a psychiatric disorder. In disorder of dissociation, the normal continuity across consciousness is disrupted. When memory is fragmented, patients lose their sense of a coherent self. They lose a sense of being connected to their body and they feel unreal. At the extreme end of the spectrum of dissociation is a condition called the dissociative identity disorder. Also known by its former name, multiple personality disorder. Now, although Matthew's state shifts created a feeling of being taken over by something beyond his control, he did not feel as though he disappeared, lost memory, or lost touch with reality. As happened in dissociative identity disorder, he did not experience these states as different from him. In fact, these states of mind had for a long time simplified like parts of his personality, natural responses to whatever was going on. As we worked together and heard more details of his relationships with women, he revealed quite dramatic states of mind, such as rage, shame, and fear, that were well established, frequently repeating patterns, but also where I was going on. He revealed quite dramatic states of mind, such as rage, shame, and fear, that were well established, frequently repeating patterns, but also quite integrated in his life. When I see his states were unintegrated, I mean that they triggered automatic and unwanted behaviors that did not respond to his conscious efforts to change them, and they created serious dysfunction in his social life and distress in his internal world. In short, when a person's states are unintegrated, he is internally distressed and inclined toward chaos or rigidity or both. He is behaviorally compromised as well, unable to be flexible and adaptive in his interaction with others. The kinds of abrupt shifts from one intense emotional state to another that Matthew was experiencing are characteristics of unresolved post-traumatic adaptation. Another way to understand Matthew's situation is to look at it from the perspective of normal development. Early adolescence is filled with tension among states, a conflict that is initially out of awareness. By mid-adolescence, these conflicts became more conscious, but teenagers still lack effective strategies for resolution. An adolescent may act one way with friends, another way with siblings, teachers, parents, or members of his hockey team. Clothes, hairstyle, and manners become symbol of different roles and of the intense conflicts among them. By late adolescence, most young people develop more effective ways to deal with this unavoidable tension across states. Healthy development is not about creating a single self that is a homogenized, uniform entity. Rather, healthy development involves coming to acknowledge, accept, and then to integrate one's various states to discover how disparate states can link and even collaborate as a unified whole composed of many parts. Matthew, however, had not mastered this essential dimension of his development. Many research studies suggests that when such collaboration across states does not occur, adolescent developmental dysfunctions such as anxiety, depression, or identity issues. On the other hand, adolescents who learn to negotiate across the different states and who find settings, friends, activities where their multiple selves can feel at home, who continue to develop and thrive. Once again, integration comes along with well-being. By now, you may be asking, what exactly are these many states or cells that each of us have? In brain terms, a state is composed of a cluster of neural firing patterns that embed within them certain behaviors, feeling tone, and access to particular memories. A state of mind makes the brain work more efficiently, trying together relevant and sometimes widely separated functions with a neural glue that links them in the moment. If you play tennis, for example, each time you put on your shorts and shoes, pick up your racket and head for the court, your brain is actively creating a tennis playing state of mind. In this state, you are primed to access your motor skills, your competitive strategies, and even your memories of prior games. If you are playing a familiar opponent, you'll recall her moves, her strongest hits, and her weak spots. All of these memories, skills, and even feelings of competition and aggregation are activated together. Sometimes the adhesive holding a state together is flexible, enabling us to be receptive and open to bringing in a new sensory data and new ways of behaving. You can learn from your opponent and respond to her game as it unfolds. Your state of mind is unique to this moment in time and one of a kind combination of neural firings. Yet it is influenced by the past. You are ready and receptive, but some ingrained states are more sticky and restrictive, locking us old pattern of neural firing, trying us previously learned information, priming us to react in rigid ways. This locked down state is reactive, meaning that our behavior is determined in large part by prior learning and is often survival based and automatic. We react reflexively rather than responding openly. An experienced tennis player who feels threatened by the skills of a younger opponent may lose focus if she takes the lead, and if he fails to adjust his play, he may lose and game he was sure he would win. With any activity, We can be receptive or we can be reactive. These qualities of receptivity or reactivity can appear in any state, whether it's helping a child with homework, giving a speech, shopping for clothes, or making love. Each of these activities, if repeated, pull together feelings, skills, memories, behaviors, and beliefs into a cohesive whole. Some states are engaged frequently enough to help define the individual. These so-called self-states combine to create our personality. These are the many cells, whether receptive or reactive, that make up the person we call myself. The self-state that were activated when Matthew was with a woman were organized around shame and around his traumatic fight flight freeze survival reaction. They primed him to respond in characteristic ways, but in this situation he was functioning on automatic pilot, driven primarily by old implicit learning. When a woman became affectionate and he found himself pulling away, he would have no awareness of the states that had taken over his mind. I want to be clear, however, that self states are part of everyone's life, even if we have no history of trauma. Matthew would often arrive at a therapy session in what we might call his business state. He would be energized and excited by a successful deal, glowing with confidence and happy to share his success with me. But as soon as we turned out our attention to his latest relationship, his enthusiasm and confidence dropped away and he entered a state of anxiety and uncertainty. This was painful but normal. As any therapy patient will recognize, many self states are organized around our basic biological drives, sometimes called motivational drives, which originate from our subcortical circuits and are shaped by our regulatory prefrontal cortex. A list of such basic drives includes exploration, mastery, play, reproduction, resource allocation, executive control, sexuality, and affiliation. If I love softball, for example, my motivation to join the department's team after work is multi-layered. It satisfies my basic drive for affiliation and play. Every time at bat, every adjustment on field engages my drives for executive control and mastery. The uncertainty and openness of the game meet my need for exploration. And then when the game is over and I am tossing the ball around for fun, my resource allocation circuits may remind me I'm hungry and need to get some rest before the work day tomorrow. I head home to eat and sleep after a full day. There is something that I'm looking because I get something in my throat. These motivational drives obviously pull together input from the body, the brainstem, and the limbic areas, but the cortex also plays an important role in self states. Now, what the cortex does is easiest to understand if we take another look at its basic anatomy. Now, top down and bottom up. Now, six cells deep. Now, that's it. Now, our powerful perceiving and planning cortex is organized by stacking six neurons. Mm, Cortex is organized by stacking six neurons on top of one another and clustering these piles or cortical columns like an interconnected honeycomb cortical column close to one another coordinate the information flow in a similar modality. Vision, for example, is carried out by columns located at the back of the cortex in the occipital lobe. Hearing by columns on each side in the temporal lobe, touched by columns higher on the side in the parietal lobe. When we plan a motor action, columns in our frontal lobe become activated, and when we form an image of our own mind or the mind of others, columns of neurons in the middle prefrontal area are firing. To understand how states of mind are shaped by prior learning, we need to grasp another amazing fact. The flow of information through a cortical column is not just from input to output, it is not one directional. Cortical column flow is bidirectional. Now, this is one important key to Matthew's state of mind and states of mind is in general. Incoming sensory data rises through the brainstem, enters the cortex at the bottom layer of neurons, and makes its way upward. This is called bottom-up information flow. When a toddler comes face to face with a rose, he may be attracted first by its bright red color, then sniff its fragrance, smell are routed directly from the nose to the cortex, touch its petals, and even try to eat one until his mother notices. This is as close to direct perception or pure bottom up experience as any of us is like to get. But if we have seen a rose before, and for many adults this applies, if we have seen any flower, a rich store of memories from similar experiences is activated by the rose. Prior learning sends related information down from the top layers of our six neuron deep column to shape our perception of what we are seeing, or hearing, or touching, or smelling, or tasting. And there is no immaculate perception. Perception is virtually always a blend of what we are sensing now and what we have learned previously. You see, if you can visualize this, the sensation moves upward from neuron layer 6 to 5 to 4. These bottom up inputs meet the top down influences coming down from layer 1 to 2 to 3. The top down influences include our present state of mind, our memories, our emotions, and our external setting. In the middle, at neuron 3 and 4, the two information streams mingle or crash. Now, what we become aware of is not what we sense but what emerged from this confluence. Suppose, for example, that you see me raise my hand over my head. If you and I are on a New York City street, you will probably assume that I am hailing a cab. If, on the other hand, we are in a classroom, you will know that I want to ask a question or make a comment. The same gesture, different contextual setting, different prior learning, you wouldn't have to think about the meaning. You would just automatically know what my moving hand meant. Now, this is the benefit of state of mind as it creates an efficient top-down filter through which we interpret the world. This is also an example of our mirror neurons at work, using prior learning to determine the intention of an action. But states of mind can distort our perception too. If you had been physically abused as a child and the setting was more ambiguous, and say we are at a party and are having a heated discussion, interpretation would become more difficult. In that context, if I raised my hand quickly to emphasize the point, you might fear I was going to hit you. Your top-down cortical flow would dominate your bottom-up visual input, and you would completely misperceive my attention. Here, your mirror neurons would distort your ability to see me clearly. This is how leftover issues and unresolved trauma can create a reactive top-down filter. Otherwise, you might either enjoy our hot argument and be receptive to my ideas, or just decide to walk away. Again, same gesture, different outcome. Learning how perception is shaped by the architecture of the cortical column helped Matthew begin to make sense of his unintegrated states of mind. He followed closely when I described how interaction with our parents shape our neural development and top-down filters, and he was intrigued by the notion that it's normal to have different and even conflicting states of mind. The challenge, he came to understand, is not to get rid of top-down influences, we can't, but to become aware when a given self-state is reactive from the past and not receptive to the present. I also wanted to make sure he understood how strongly top-down flow can dominate bottom-up input. When we are on autopilot, our awareness believes what it pursues. There is no mindsight and our state dependent perception, emotional reactions, beliefs, and behavioral responses are felt to be justified, equated with absolute reality, not discerned as just activities of the mind. Before therapy, Matthew's intuition and gut feelings were telling him his girlfriend were repulsive, and he was totally convinced by these distorted top or down communication. Top down forces can shape what we think in the blink of an eye, distort the reliability of our instinctual responses, and challenge our most cherished sense of free will. So, what is left for us to rely upon? Now, how can we know who we really are? What is good for us? What is true? If we have so many states of mind, which one defines us, and which should we choose to be? The answer to this fundamental question emerge from state integration. State integration, inner, intra, and V. State integration involves the linkage in at least three different dimensions of our lives. The first level of integration is between our different states, the inter dimension. We must accept our multiplicity. The fact that we can show up quite differently in our athletic, intellectual, sexual, spiritual, or many other states. A heterogeneous collection of states is completely normal in us humans. The key to well-being is collaboration across states, not some rigidly homogeneous unity. The notion that we can have a single, totally consistent way of being is both idealistic and unhealthy. The second level of state integration takes place within intra the given state itself. A state needs internal coherence in order to function, to achieve its goal effectively, and without internal disintegration. For example, I decided to join a gym to increase my physical fitness. If I have never allowed myself to be athletic, if as a kid I was mocked for my clumsiness and still feel that old fear and confusion, then I'll need to do some reflective work with myself. Otherwise, that leftover baggage is likely to sabotage my goal. I probably won't enjoy what I am learning, and I'll find myself going to the gym less and less frequently. The third dimension of state integration involves who we are in relationship. Our history shapes how our sense of being and I can become a part of we state without being obliterated by this joining. Becoming open to this new state of mind requires us to be vulnerable and receptive, qualities that are challenging for many of us. There was no safe we state available to Matthew as a child, and he was finding it impossible to achieve even now. Matthew and I had our work cut out for us in all three of these dimensions. Untangling the knot of the shame. You might ask, well, why doesn't Matthew just get rid of those shame states? The results oriented businessman in Matthew had a similar impulse. He wanted to wipe out the aspects of himself that he could not bear. Unfortunately, that divide and destroy approach simply does not work. Each of our states is fulfilling some kind of unmet need. In order to begin inner state integration, it is important to approach these deeper needs, identifying them, and find more adaptive and healthy ways to meet and satisfying them. What if our basic motivational states are in conflict? Some states collaborate well, sexuality and play, for example, but others clash. So we need to find a way to embrace strong motivational drives that exist side by side. Our need for focused mastery and our need for open-ended play. Our drive to monitor our resources of time, energy, money, food, etc. and our drive to reproduce. Children cost us a lot in energy, money, and food, which is as true for modern city dwellers as it was for early humans. Our need for exploration to follow our individual creative interest and our need for social affiliation to remain member in good standing of our family or community requires fitting in with others. These built-in contradiction are one reason that balance and variety are so essential to our health. Here is how Matthew and I approached the conflicting states that were tearing him apart. Matthew and I could easily identify the part of him that desperately wanted to have a partner in his life. I'm so done with my 20s, he said, looking back at his sex life after high school. Now I'm looking to settle down. No, but I just can't seem to find the right person. In fact, at this stage of his life, the right person Matthew needed to find was himself. Now, while one self state wanted to closeness and intimacy, another self state needed to protect his vulnerability, and yet another needed to prove his self worth. Now, these states were clustered in different firing patterns in Matthew's brain, filtering his perceptions quite differently from the closeness seeking state. Think of Matthew's cortical columns in a closeness state. He sees this attractive woman, his girlfriend, and in that state, her pursues her as right for him in so many ways. Her intellect, her sexuality, her personality, her humor. These are the reasons he is drawn to her. But when, as she grows more fond of him, as she comes to like the wonderful person and that he is, and he can be quite wonderful and kind, something shifts in him. That shifts Matthew and I came to understand was the activation of another set of self-states. Shame organized Matthew's self-states into a number of related but distinct clusters. One was simply protective. If his girlfriend is interested in him, she might get to know him and discover that is deep inside a jerk. Better to leave her before she finds out. This state also protected him from the threat of sexual failure. If he really wanted to be close to a woman, if the relationship truly mattered, then the idea that he might screw things up was so distressing that it was better to end the relationship before he did. Just as in his 20s, it had been better to have sex with women he didn't care about, so that it didn't matter how he did. This was one of the many layered reasons Matthew became self-conscious and lost interest sexually once his girlfriend liked him too much. Another shame best self-state was more punitive. If she really liked him, now could he ever forgive her? Does that line of reasoning sound irrational? Here is the logic. If a woman likes me, there must be something wrong with her. So why would I want to be with her? Shame explains that equation. When we have a deep belief that the self is defective, all of these irrational responses make total sense. Matthew's conquest drive was at another shame-based self-state. When he chose hard to get women, a part of him felt totally compelled to win them over. He had never chosen a woman who liked Matthew's conquest drives was at another shamed but self-state, where he chose hard to get women. A part of him felt totally compelled to win them over. He had never chosen women who liked him up front. Never. Even women who were just neutral didn't attract his interest. For a self-state still trying to conquer an old trauma, the best approach was to recreate neural firing patterns as close to the original as possible. One clinical term for this is traumatic reenactment. In brain terms, he was seeking memory triggers to activate self states that were always ready to engage with distant and potentially abusive mother resembling woman. Matthew had a knack for finding them, at least on the surface. But another self state from Matthew's childhood was still active as well. A young state simply needing love and connection. A number of his girlfriends has glimpsed this state and it would open their hearts. It was beautiful to hear about these precious moments when Matthew could accept a woman's affection, even though his shame-based self-sabotage would soon return. So, now what could we do? Instead, integration required that Matthew stabilize his mindset lens just as Jonathan did in chapter 5. We took a break from romance and over the next few weeks, our sessions focused on teaching him the various reflective techniques. Matthew liked the wheel of awareness, metaphor, and the idea that mental exercise could strengthen the hub of his mind. Although he was skeptical at first, he also found the body scan to be helpful. The intensity that he brought to this practice felt like the state he had at work. We could name a goal and he would pursue it with highly focused energy. But Matthew soon found that accepting whatever arose required a new kind of awareness. It was difficult for him to become open to his inner world without trying to control it. Take the strong feeling of repulsion that would arise when he was with a woman. He needed to observe its emergence. He needed to be objective about his being just a part of who he was, and he needed to remain open to the deeper pain that was driving it. When I introduced Matthew to the stay with that practice, the one I taught to Anne in chapter 7, he was intrigued by the seemingly paradox of using the strength of his mind to just be curious and open, not to be accepting of his inner world. Curiosity, openness, and acceptance, I told him, were in many ways a fundamental ingredient of love. Now, Matthew said were the very things missing from his life as a child. As with Anne in chapter 7, therapy for Matthew required a dual focus of attention, one tracking his moment to moment experience in the past or with the woman he was now having relationships with, the other grounded firmly in the present. With me in the room with him. Though many challenging sessions, we came to see how raw his childhood experience of rejections and terror still was, and how much support he needed to stay with it. Matthew also needed many of the skills of integration, bilateral, vertical memory, and narrative to move these raw implicit recollection into their more flexible explicit forms. In one session, Matthew recalled going into his father's room to see if he could play with him. He must have been with about 6 years old. His mother rushed in, grabbed his arm, and pulled him out the door. How many times do I have to tell you not to bother him with your nonsense? She demanded. Now in my office, his arms began to quiver. He saw his mother's face and recalled how terrified he had been by her fury. I asked him to stay with that fear, holding it in the front of his mind. We sat together with his terror and experienced how it unfolded into sadness. Matthew began to cry. I showed him a way to hold himself. One hand over his heart, the other over his abdomen. For many people, this provides a powerful experience of self-soothing. Matthew had never had a way to take care of the pain of his shame without trying to escape from it. I hoped this technique would help him widen his window of tolerance. After a few minutes, he said it helped a lot, and we discovered that for him, as it is for me, the left hand over the heart is the most soothing. It's actually the other way for most people. Embracing himself, he could also embrace his implicit memory of a child who longed to be loved, to be accepted, to be seen for who he has. Once Matthew was calmer, more memories came. He told me how he had taken on a newspaper route as early as he could. At age 12, he had used his first earning to buy his mother a blender so she could make a milkshake for his father. She hardly said thank you. He said, I did well in school. Now I would buy her flowers. Later, I spent the weekends washing cars so I could give her some money. Nothing seemed to impress her. Then, after a pause, he told me he had realized something, that no matter what happened with the woman in his life, he could never prove that his mother was kind and loving to him, and no matter how many women he had, he could never prove to his parents that he was a lovable person. Matthew was beginning to untie the knot of shame. From then, from then on, within the safe haven of our reflective dialogues, a new kind of self-state seemed to emerge in Matthew. One day he said, I feel like there is this solid place in me where I can just watch, just observe and collect it all. He spoke quietly and with a kind of surprise at his discovery, which I took in with my own feeling of gratitude. Is there any core self? Finding a core. I'm just checking what is going on. The things here so that on my YouTube studio, and like how is the progressing? Sometimes it's very compelling even the like when I'm thinking about that the channel is completely for growing oneself, but our temptation is like that. Oh, we have to get so many subscribers. As yesterday I was scrolling Instagram where I saw one person who was growing very rapidly, and I thought that the same, like why I'm not growing, but it's not like that. The basic purpose of this channel is completely to grow myself, to make myself so much growing on self that I can speak in front of lots of people where I'm not hesitating. I'm giving the way better explanation or communication or having very good speech so that everybody is listening me that much. I want to improve myself, so that is why I have created this channel. I'm telling this here right away because my concentration is getting toward my subscribers, that why it is not increasing or why it is growing or like whatever it is. I just don't want to concentrate over there. Now, the basic purpose of this channel is completely to grow myself so that I'll be able to thrive myself anywhere, like in a way of speaking, in a way of doing the things. I'm doing all these challenges so that whenever I tend to do something at the time, I'll be able to do the things. That is why I'm doing it again and again, and that is why whatever I have recorded in starting of this channel, it's vanilla completely. I don't have any editing and all those things because I tried once creating YouTube videos and editing it, but felt very bad about that because I was expecting that I wanted to have good video like any other YouTuber, and I will post that YouTube video on YouTube and it will get so many subscribers within a day. That was my expectation, and just because of that expectation I was getting frustrated and I deleted all those channels, as not channel but videos, and I never been consistent on that. I never had been consistent on that. I will use past tense for this because right now I'm very consistent about my channel, my videos, because my basic purpose of this channel is completely for growing myself only, as well as you. If you are watching and if you are following the things, if you are also doing the things the same way as I'm doing, you'll also grow. That's obvious thing. So that is all about my channel. And again, I'm telling this just because I'm getting distracted or my concentration is going toward my subscribers, that why my subscriber is not going faster. Like I'm thinking about it. It's an usual thing, it's natural thing for me or for any other person who tends to see their subscribers, or if they have created channel, or if they have something in their mind, like, let's say if they ordered something, they wanted to see that immediately, or if there is something that tempted them to see or to get that particular thing to fulfill their feelings. It happens like that, and it is happening right now with me as well. So I'm just trying to say my brain that I don't need to see my subscribers, I don't need to be impatient for those things, because I didn't created that this channel for getting subscriber and earning money and getting famous on this. I just created this channel for myself, to grow myself. I'm telling it again to my brain as well as you. That's the thing I'm following. Like whenever I feel something that's going out of the way or off way, I try to say myself in front of camera so that my brain listen and act on it. That is why I say it. And there is one more thing that I was about to say that I was having in my mind that I forgot. I'm really sorry for that. Finding the core. Whoever is watching, thank you very much being on my live streaming. Here, just to let you know, I read every day for 2 hours. It's my challenge for 91 days, and I've been performing it for every day. It's 10th day, and it's very exciting when you see yourself completing for each day. Like when I go on my YouTube and see how much days I have completed, then it makes me feel fulfilled that, oh, I have completed that. So let me read it again. I didn't say much thing today. I read very quietly, goodly. I don't know, just because of my I was used to reading on here on that iPad. So like as I showed you, like, let me show you here as well. It's uh, 20 32 days that I have been reading this book. For 32 days I have been reading, so I'm really used to reading on iPad, just because of that. Like I was reading very concentratedly. My concentration was not distracted from somewhere else, because I was used to, or I'm used to reading on iPad. That is why I literally read today very well. Let me read ahead, or let me continue. Is there any core self beneath all our layers of adaptation and personality? I have talked about our multiple self states, each carrying out its own mission to fulfill our motivational drives, for connections, for creativity, for comfort. Other states coalesce. I'll check its meaning, not meaning, translation, pronunciation afterward, because right now my translate speaker
College.
is not working.
College.
I don't know why is it happening, but it's not working. Other states coalesce around specific activities, our expertise at a particular sport, our mastery of a musical instrument, or a set of skills necessary for work or school. There is one more thing that is coming into my mind, is that I should say or explain things what I am reading. It will make our live streaming more effective. But right now I am not doing it because I don't have much way of explanation. Way in the sense, there are some of the things that I have stuck, as well as I want to read actually first. This is the first thing I would have like explain it as well. Whatever I read, I'm going to explain. It's very easy that everybody is going to listen it. That will be very awesome. But I really personally, I really want to read first. Like after completing this challenge, I'll keep another challenge. In that completely I'll explain the things paragraph by paragraph, so that everybody can like listen, everybody can understand, everybody can implement on that. It's like it will be more like that. school. Still, other states operate in our social roles. We lead a community, organization, find a romantic partner, participate in family life, make new friends, and keep up with old ones. But beneath all of these self states, I believe is a core self that receptivity at its heart. Some researchers call this core ips, ipse, ipsity. From the Latin word ips, meaning itself, ipsity is our suchness, the beginning that underlies the activity of each of our self states. For many of us, this receptive self is hard to imagine, much less feel, but it is the essential. You beneath narrative and memory, emotional reactivity and habit. It is from this place that we may suspend the flow of top-down influences and come close to what has been called beginner's mind. When Matthew said that he had found this solid place within himself, he was describing the receptive self that rests beneath each of the many of self states that are activated in our day-to-day lives. If he continued to develop it, this self could become an inner sanctuary for him, or open to what is, ready to receive whatever arrives at the door, inviting all aspects of himself into the shelter of his receptive mind. In my own and many others' experience, developing mindsight lens can give us access to this receptive self beneath our layers of adaptation, even beyond our state of mind in the moment. When we develop the spaciousness of a receptive mind, we come to see mental activities, including states of mind, as just the activities of the mind, not the totally of who we are. Resting in the hub of the mind, we can achieve a sense of our receptive self, opening ourselves to a world of new possibilities and creating the underlying condition for state integration. As time we state of joining. As time went on, Matthew began to date a different kind of woman he found interesting and attractive, not just challenging. Initially, his feeling of wanting the chase would take him over, and he would feel uneasy and bored whenever anyone liked him. But over many months of his inner work in therapy, he came to feel indifferently. Joining became the new focus of his relationship, rather than the old drive to seduce and conquer. Eventually, he did find one particular person to care about, and he is now learning to live with the uncertainty that being close entails. Becoming part of we is a pushing Matthew to experience his vulnerability and to stay present rather than to fight, or flee, or freeze. His sense of shame still emerges in various situations, but now he usually notices his reactivity before he starts to act on it. His newly developed skills have freed him from his automatic patterns so that he can choose how to respond. He and I both believe that he can now create the loving connection with a woman and with himself that he deserved so long ago. The neurobiology of we becoming advocates for one another. Denise walked into my office with a stride that declared security and assurance. She was shadowed by her husband Peter, whose slow shuffle and downward glance radiated dejection as they came in for their first couples session. Denise sat upright in her chair. Peter slouched on the couch, immediately picking up a large pillow to hold in his lap as a kind of shield. You didn't have to be a psychiatrist to know they were a couple in trouble. His whim denies declared, and what is more, his neediness makes me sick. Peter seemed out of breath as he spoke, but that didn't prevent his own attack. It doesn't take long to figure out and this isn't working. I married a narcissist. What was wrong with me? You might reasonably imagine that with so much hostility and contempt right out of the gate, this relationship was beyond repair, but beneath this was rage and disillusionment. I sensed sadness and loneliness, and perhaps longing that might motivate them to change. Denise and Peter had been married for 10 years, and they had two young children at home, whom they said they each loved, never relentlessly fought over. Both of them were in their late 30s and were involved. Denise and Peter had been married for 10 years and they had two young children at home, whom they said they each loved but relentlessly fought over. Both of them were in their late 30s and were involved in intense professional careers. Denise as an architect, Peter as a teacher at a leading conver, conservatory of music who also performed occasionally. They had tried marriage counseling for a while, but found that their efforts to open up the lines of communication were futile. Their next appointments, Denise said, were going to be with their attorneys, but they felt they owed it to the children to try one more time. And a friend had suggested they call me. Denise continued to spill out her complaints. Early in their marriage, she had felt everything was fine, but as the years had gone by, she had come to see Peter as very insecure and too demanding. Her emphasis and conviction created an image in my mind like a neon sign. He is ill and needs help. She would always known Peter was an emotional guy, she said, but she hadn't realized until he had children that he was actually weak. She told me that he couldn't or wouldn't stand up to their 2-year-old daughter, who had him wrapped around her little finger. He put up with tantrums that Denise had no time for. He was no better with their 5-year-old son. She complained. He sweet talks and negotiates and lectures, and the boy just ignores him. He should just tell them both to zip it up, and do what they are told. She concluded, I've lost any respect I might ever have had for him. Peter's concerns resolved around feeling isolated in the marriage. Denise is too independent and strong-willed. She has hard. She's hard on the kids. She's hard on me. I never see her warm up to them. She's like a boss without a heart. Peter went on to say that he felt lonely and uncared for by her. As he told me this, he looked away from me and from Denise. He sounded forlorn and helpless. Lives out of harmony. Now, the brain is a social organ, and our relationships with one another are not a luxury but an essential nutrient now for our survival. Now, but both Denise and Peter now were in profound distress. Now, clearly, the way they were relating to each other was anything but a source of well being. What could we hope to achieve in therapy? Could either of them change enough individually or as a couple to bring their relationship back into harmony? Sometimes the best couples therapist can do is help two people see how mismatched they are so that they can separate and move on. Clearly, Denise and Peter no longer shared the experience of feeling felt by one another. If they ever had the sensation of being with someone who knows you, who wants to connect, who has your best interest in mind. This essential nutrient was missing from their relationship. I asked to meet with each of them individually before coming up with a plan for therapy. In these visits, I confirmed that they both genuinely hoped the marriage could be saved. There were no identity infidelities, no betrayals, no secrets, agendas, or hidden convictions. That the marriage was dead and beyond repair. When I had seen Denise and Peter together, they, they, they had had flashes of the kind of mutual contempt and a vindictivity, vindictiveness that can doom therapy. Actually, let me tell you one thing here, that I was getting background noise of my mother. Actually, she was having some conversations. So it was distracting me because I was reading here and I was listening her voice, and I was just thinking about one thing, that my her voice is getting into my video. Might be people will listen it, and what people will tell, or what how people will judge me, that I was thinking about it. But suddenly there is one thing that comes into my mind: I have to accept as it is, and if I'm going to accept as it is, I can improve it after some time, after a certain period of time. Improve in the sense, if I don't let my mother voice in it, then I can do something, but for now I can't do anything about it. And it's my mother, I don't have any problem. Like, what will happen? Nothing will happen. Let people judge whatever she is gonna, like, whatever her voice in my videos, it's okay, no problem. I don't have any problem if her voice is getting into the video, if people is going to judge me. But uh, if it's related to her voice, like what she's saying, how she's saying, if it is related to that only, if people is going to judge related to that, then I will not have any problem. Because whatever we in the sense, you as well as me, everybody, we can't, like, unaccept, or we can't deny the things. Whatever we are, we have to accept as it is, and if we want to improve, we can improve it. There is no problem in that. If you, let's say, if you are saying something, and in that saying you are not getting something, and you want to improve that getting, you can improve that. There is no problem in that. But if you have accepted it, then it's okay, everybody accepts it. So that is the thing that was going into my mind. So it was like that, I said it, I expressed it, because I don't wanted me to think something like that, okay, I'm getting distracted or something. Next time when I will listen her voice, I will not having any problem, I will be completely reading, because I have just accepted that. But the thing is that in order to make my video good, in order to, like, fully concentrate on the things, like, let's say, if you are ready, if you are also here just to read, just to get something from video, or content that I'm reading, then I would make this video more good in the sense, I'll try to get something like mic or something related to the voice that will make so much good, so that you won't be able to hear the background noises. That I can do, but I will not think that, oh, or I will not get overwhelmed by the background noise, that, oh, why it is coming, it will make my video bad, people, what people gonna judge about this. Likewise, it doesn't matter, because we are human being. Whatever we have to accept it as it is. We don't need to shame on ourselves. Like, let's say, if some people who is working and their language is different, it is not popular, like some communities only saying that language, you don't have to, like personally, I was feeling it earlier, that now when I speak in Hindi, my Hindi is like mixed of Marathi and Hindi only. So I feel like whenever I say something to people, then they ask me about the words that they don't get. So just because of that, I felt bad. Oh, why I'm not getting the same Hindi like them? So it's not anyone's problem. It's culture. We have to accept as it is. Whatever we are, it's like. And if we felt that it's not, just because of something, it's we are lagging, then we can improve that. There is no problem. But the first thing, that we have to accept whatever we have as it is, then there is chances to improvement. If we are not going to accept as it is, then how you are going to improve? I'm not saying anything like you shouldn't accept, or you shouldn't have the things, something like that. If it is the thing, you can accept. If it is not, then let it be as it is. There is no problem. I said it. The most of the things that I say here for now, it's more related to me. Like, I have created this channel because I really want to improve myself, like literally improve. So if I think that is making me behind, or if I think that something is not good, I just say things here, and it makes me revise. It makes me remember that everything is fine. There is no need of thinking the thing that is going into your background. So it's okay. But when they were alone with me, But when they were alone with me, the longing that I had sensed beneath the surface in our first meeting emerged. They weren't just seeing me for the sake of the children. Peter sounded less resigned and negative. He talked about his respect for Denise's strengths and how at one time they had made a good team. Denise was initially more aloof, but as we continued to talk, she seemed so softened. Unlike the fault-finding stance she would taken in their joint session, she had taken in their joint session. She told me that she wanted to see what she could do to make things better. That was a surprise and further gave me a sense of hope. Even if they didn't in the end stay together, I could at least help them part uh, amicably so that they could co-parent with minimum animosity. And so I said that I'd be happy to work with them, and they agreed to a limited number of sessions. After 6 meetings, we would reassess where we were and make a collective decision on how to proceed. As first step, I felt that I could draw on the positive intention they expressed. When alone with me to help them shift out of their defensive and reactive patterns and move toward openness and vulnerability with each other. Ironically, the aspects of a person that we find most attractive at the beginning of a relationship become the very characteristics that drive us mad later on. In our next joint session, I asked them about the beginning of their relationship. Peter said that he had been drawn to Denise's independence, strength, and strong opinions, and thought that they were a good complement to what he felt lacking in himself. Denise said that she was first attracted to Peter's appearance, sensitivity, and the way he talked about his feelings. She didn't know exactly why these were traits she liked, but she just did. Peter looked surprised, even hopeful, when Denise said this, but then she went on to repeat that she now found him too emotional and extremely insecure. Her judgmental tone wiped the look of openness right off Peter's face. In the voyage from romance to marriage, something had changed. They both became busy in their professions, and their relationship went on the back burner. Time moved forward, children came, and they found themselves becoming irritated with each other frequently and with surprising intensity. Peter described a typical conflict. He would want to be close to Denise, to talk over his day with her, or just get a hug when he came home from work. But she would either be preoccupied with the children's routines, or she would just pull away from him and withdraw into her home office and to seek solitude. Peter's response to her withdrawal was to reach out with more intensity. I just can't stand it when she shut me out like that, Peter said. Denise's face looked blank when he said this, but if he protested, Denise would yell at him and tell him he was too demanding. And now he said he had begun to doubt his own feelings. Did he have a right to want to be close to his wife or to anyone? Over time, this pattern of his approach and her withdrawal had evolved into a distancing set of interactions. They couldn't pinpoint any particular disagreement or event that marked the beginning of their troubles, but better said, their relationship was starting to feel dead even before their daughter, Carrie, was born. While Peter felt that he was dying on the vine, Denise initially said they could survive their conflict if uh, he would just leave me alone. Their sexual life had dropped to near zero in the past year, and Denise said that this was just fine with her. It isn't fine with me. Peter shot back. I also learned that Denise had recommended early on in their troubles that Peter seek out his own therapy, which he had done, but nothing seemed to change in him or in her, in him or in her. While each of them many indeed have needed some individual work, the we of Denise and Peter was in a desperate need of attention. There was more behind this pattern of interaction than the communication problems. He had tried to address in counseling. Denise and Peter actually communicated fairly well, yeah, at least on the surface. Both of them were quite articulate and they even listened to each other. They had past communication 101, but kindness and compassion were in short supply in the marriage. Denise and Peter talked about each other lightly as a collection of annoying, hurtful, or inadequate behaviors. Neither expressed much respect for others' mind or much interest in the internal experience of the other. This lack of insight and empathy was keeping them from finding common ground from which to address their differences. Hey, welcome to live streaming. Whoever is watching, I can see there is one person who is seeing it. Thank you for joining live streaming. Feeling safe with each other, receptivity and reactivity. A mindsight approach to couples therapy different from other strategies in that we pay close and careful attention to the flow of energy and information, how it is regulated by the mind, shaped by the brain, and shared in our relationship. It was time to introduce Denise and Peter to the triangle of well-being and to notion of integration. When I showed them the hand model of the brain, I especially emphasized the way the brain creates the two distinct states of mind I had observed in them both, so that they could grasp the fundamental difference between an open and receptive state and a reactive one. In order to help them experience this difference directly, I offered them a simple exercise. I told them I would repeat a word several times and asked them to just notice what it felt like in their bodies. The first word was no, said firmly and slightly harshly 7 times, with about 2 seconds between each no. And then, after another pause, I said a clear but somewhat more gentle yes 7 times. Denise reported afterward that no felt stifling. It really pissed me off. Peter said it made him feel shut down and tried shut down and tight, like I was being scolded. In contrast, the years made him feel calm with a peaceful feeling inside. Denise said I was glad when you started saying yes, but I was still mad from the no things. It took me a while to relax and feel okay. Now that they had an immediate felt experience of difference between reactive and receptive states. I went on to explain that when the nervous system is reactive, it is actually in a fight flight freeze response state from which it is just not possible to connect with another. I pointed to the palm of my hand model of the brain and explained how automatically and swiftly the brainstem reacts whenever we feel threatened, either physically or emotionally. When our entire focus is on self-defense, no matter what we do, I have said that we can't open ourselves enough to hear our partner's word accurately. Our state of mind can turn even neutral comments into fighting words, distorting what we hear to fit what we fear. On the other hand, I went on, when we are receptive, a different branch of the brainstem system becomes activated. The responses to the yes I had already suggested what happens. The muscle of the face and the vocal cords relax. Sorry for my cough and cold. The muscle of the face and the vocal cords relax. Blood pressure and heart rate normalize. we become more open to experiencing whatever the other person wants to express. A receptive set turn on the social engagement, a system that connects us to others. Yeah, in a nutshell, receptivity is our experience of being safe and seen. Reactivity is our fight, flight, freeze, survival reflex. My first challenge to Denise and Peter was to ask them to just notice the state they were in, or the one that was emerging. As they began a discussion, if either of them was in or anywhere near a reactive mode, they should stop and ask to take a break or a timeout, which the other person would agree to respect. For now, they could take as much time as they needed to calm down, as long as they both agreed to come back to the communication table when they were ready. As the conversation progressed, Denise and Peter began to recognize what these states felt like in real time interaction. At first, I would be the one to pause when I felt one or the other of them was getting reactive, and I would raise my hand as our shared signal that it might be time to take a break. Soon they each learned to detect this reactive feeling inside when they would slip away from receptivity, and they began to initiate the pause that refreshes on their own. They were a bit surprised now how hard it was to ask for a pause when the other was speaking, and even harder to accept when they were the one talking. At one point, Peter said that Denise's pause signal felt like she was saying, "Just shut up." At this, Denise scolded. No, but then he went on. He said, yeah, he would just realize she was telling herself to stop too. At this, Denise's tight face loosened, and I could see her eyes soften a bit, as if she had just discovered something hidden and important. And then she reassured him with a slight smile that she would tell him directly to cram it, if that's what she meant. This brief interaction, ending with a touch of humor, was a hopeful sign. Peter could learn to recognize and adjust his perceptions. Denise could acknowledge that he would done so and show a little perspective on her own behavior. It was a small moment of joining and collaboration. In a later session, Peter once told Denise that she was showing her narcissistic side again. He spoke quietly, but it wasn't hard to pick up his anger and his intent to insult her. Previously, Denise would have lobbed an insult right back. With Peter's emotional neediness uh, as the easy target, but instead she raised her hand. I am going to react to and we have to stop. They both paused and focused on their breath. I wish I had had a camera in the room to show you how this transaction unfolded. After their pause, Peter was able to acknowledge that he had lashed out in fear. Now, this allowed Denise to own her accurate perception of his intent and to forgive him for the attack. What would once have driven the nails deeper into the coffin of their relationship now became an occasion for repair and rebuilding the trust. I'm getting hungry. Uh, I have to do something related to this. I have to like eat breakfast before my live streaming so that I didn't get distracted because of my appetite. Yeah, appetite, I guess. Appetite for eating. Appetite means hunger for something. So appetite for my hungriness. It's getting like obviously rats are wandering in my stomach. That is what happening right now. Opening Mindsight lens. Denise and Peter had spent so much time together in reactivity that they needed to strengthen their basic ability to enter a receptive state of awareness to help them unlearn the old pattern and learn new. I spent much of third session introducing them to the hub of the mind and the basic mindfulness of the breath exercise. I used the hand model of the brain to explain how focused attention could help develop the middle prefrontal areas, and I also explained how this would support what we were doing therapy. Peter had done some yoga when he was younger, and he immediately found the basic practices quite calming. But staying present in this way was new for Denise. Uh, Mindfulness of I used the hand model of the brain to explain how focused attention could help develop the middle prefrontal areas, and I also explained how these would support what we were doing in therapy. Peter had done some yoga when he was younger, and he immediately found the basic practice quite calming. But staying present in this way was new for Denise, and she told me she found the exercise odd, unhelpful, and somewhat confusing. I encouraged her to just notice that odd feeling and not to expect the practice to do anything in particular. To her credit, Denise stuck with it and did the exercise at home. But it was quite a while before she could open to any sense of clarity or calm. By now, of course, you know that my goal for this integration of consciousness exercise went beyond calm. I wanted to give Denise and Peter a way to increase their capacity to find that core place beneath their individual adaptation, the receptive state buried under layer of reactive defense. In the case of Jonathan in chapter 5, reinforcing the prefrontal circuits enabled him to pause and avoid being swept up by his wild swings in mood and helped to stabilize his roller coaster mind. I find a Reinforcing the prefrontal circuits enable him to pause and avoid being swept up his wild swing in mood and help to stabilize his roller coaster mind. I had a similar hope for Denise and Peter that widening the middle prefrontal hub would enable them to see beyond the reactions and so find each other. I also trusted that it would help them find themselves. For our fourth and fifth sessions, I decided to conduct an attachment interview with Denise and Peter as each listened into others' unfolding story. I asked them directly if they would honor the vulnerability this involved. They agreed, both in words and with non-verbal signals. I could clearly feel that they would respect the inner world of the other as it emerged in the interviews. This agreement plus the basic goodwill they had shown in their individual sessions made me feel we could do this work respectfully. What emerged in brief was that Peter had a generally preoccupied narrative that revealed his continuing concern with left over issue from his childhood, while Denise had a dismissing narrative that minimized her need for others, both then in her childhood and now. Peter was youngest of four siblings. He was the youngest of four siblings, and his mother had developed chronic back problem for a car accident shortly after he was born. Now, there were a number of surgeries, hospitalizations, and long periods of convalescence at home, while Peter's father worked two jobs as a security guard, including some night shifts to make ends meet. Peter's old sister, Maggie, who was a dozen years his senior, was the primary caregiver for Peter during his early years, but she developed a drug addiction as a teenager. She had started with their mother's pain medication and moved on to barbiturates and alcohol. Maggie would leave him alone with his other sisters, 5 and 7 years older, who Peter said just fended from themselves. I would try to find my way to my mother he recalled, and sometimes would be fine. No, I mean, she would be there for me. We were close for a while. When I was young, I think I know she used to spend a lot of time with Maggie. She linked her more than my other sisters or me, but mostly she was either locked away in her room or didn't seem to care. She never has, and I am still alone. And Peter concluded somewhat bitterly. Now, this intermingling of the past, I would try to find, and present she never has. And I am still alone. Not only revealed a preoccupied state of mind, but also suggested something about how Peter saw Denise. And throughout Peter's childhood, his father smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day, relieve his stress, and he died of heart attack when Peter was 14. His mother recovered somewhat after that and began to work as substitute teacher, but Peter never regained a sense of closeness to her. She was a sad, depressed woman who remained alone for the remainder of her life. She had died 10 years earlier, shortly before his marriage to Denise. Peter said that he would always felt responsible for her sadness, especially during the years when he was the last child left at home. Music became Peter's refuge. His talent on him the praise he would seldom received he had seldom received at home and gave him a way to vent his creative energies. His music also landed him a scholarship at conservatory across the country. When Peter went off to school, he was determined to remain financially independent so that I wouldn't need to rely on anyone for anything. He lost touch with his sibling and made what he called duty visits to his mother only once or twice a year. He did well in his studies, discovered a passion for chess, and was admitted to a top graduate school in music musicology, but he found himself in romantic relationships with women who asked too much of him and who never helped him feel at ease. He could never make them happy. He said he was certain that he would leave him, fearful that they wouldn't. Now, these story relationships made him moody, irritable, and unstable, and he would fly off the handle quite frequently. Even his performance as a jazz pianist began to suffer. I couldn't get into that headspace to just let the improvisations happen. I actually thought of going back to classical piece of could cite read of a score. Now then, during his last year of graduate school, Peter met Denise at a friend's party and he felt safe with her. She never asked much from him and he was relieved to find that there was room in the relationship for me to feel comfortable and to be myself. His jazz performance improved and things seemed to be on the right track during the first years of their marriage. The one more thing that I really want to say about reading 2 hours and when it's up to end, like when live streaming is about to end, I usually see my time again and again so that I can end this. I don't have to see these. I have to focus on myself here while reading only to get it, to find myself very immersed in it, understanding in it, and enjoying the reading and talking with you. Like that is what I want, and I will get it within 5-10 days. I hate that I do know about because I'm telling my brain here now that what I have to do, I don't have to look at it. I will say I have to read concentratedly, I have to immerse in, I have to enjoy it. Positive sentence that I have to make so that I can remember. Not I, but my subconscious mind should remember. Two, I'm making 2 sentences here. One, I already made that I have to concentrate on the things, and second thing that I say that I have to say this because my brain will listen it. I will say it again and again, and the brain will listen it. Might be you'll feel that it's not the thing, but as I've been reading, I get to know about this, and I felt it helped me. So I'm saying it. You can also utilize it, or you can also follow this thing. And but before following that, deep inside you there should be some belief that it works. If you are not going to believe that, then it will not work, because our subconscious brain works on our beliefs only. So you need to believe on your thoughts, whatever you are thinking of. That way it will help you. I will read one more paragraph. After that, I will end by saying bye bye. Have a good day ahead. There should be something that I need to bring in, something new, so that my live stream student feel bored. Even if I'm growing myself here, but I need to think about yourself as well. What you are getting from me, it should be useful. So that I want to say. My 2 hours end, like completed. I can end, but what should I do? Let me see. I'll end here itself. So as I was about to read, but it's almost 2 hour completed. I have achieved my 10th day of challenge, and that's very amazing for today as well. And if you also want to start challenge, you can start from today itself, and that could be of 80 days challenge. If you want to have challenge along with me, same, you can keep the first day of challenge, or you can keep 90-day. You can read with me, you can follow the things, you can like do that you wanted to achieve in your own life. Like I like, if I want, what I'm saying here, sometimes it's very difficult for me. This sentence I'm not gonna make, because I do know about that my brain listens. So sometime I'll try to make the sentence as much as possible as correct. Okay, so what I was saying, that you can also follow me, you can also implement the things in your life that you think that will make your life better than today. Then go ahead and follow the same thing, that I'm not same thing, but the thing that you want to do. Like, let's say if you want to exercise, just try creating a videos, try creating a channel and upload a video. This is best way to track your progress. I'm not saying that you have to create channel or something, but there should be something that will record your progress. When you are going to see your progress on a board or wherever you have recorded, you will feel fulfillment, and you will be able to do your next day as well. You are going to do every day for that. So that is what I'm saying, just go ahead, do the same thing that I'm doing, record yourself or track your progress, see it every day, reflect on that, and you'll see yourself that you're growing. So that's all for today. It was very awesome live streaming. I felt actually today, because earlier I was more focusing on the things like here and there, but today I literally read very well, quite well than yesterday. I get some of the things from it. There were some of the stories that I listened, that I learned, that I read, and it was good reading those. And again, that's very nice challenge. What I'm saying here, sometime nothing. I'm not gonna make any sentence, but I'll try to make as much as possible correct sentences, so that I'll get better myself. So the thing is that today it was our 10th day, and I'm going to end this live streaming. Thank you very much for watching. If you are watching the end, and if you would like to grow in your life, then try following the things like me in the sense, you can create your own routines, and if you find my routine helpful, you can implement that as well. So thank you very much, have a nice day ahead, bye bye.